Okay, so just a quick recap in terms of core sprint planning. We'll start at kind of the high level. So from a platform standpoint, the intent was to do some, to create an incremental build environment, do more comprehensive testing, definitely integration of unit testing on the development side, and then clean up, refactor, follow through with an upgrade to ONOS. And that's one of the things that we want to touch on. So maybe we'll start off with that. So ONOS 1.11 or 1.10? 1.10 is going to be releasing end of May, and then 1.11 is end of August. So in talking with Sarah, your thought is that from a fabric feature standpoint, there really isn't much in 1.11 that we would necessarily want to integrate?
So 1.11 is going to have
and we'll have timing issues too.
We'll have timing issues mainly because 1.11 is going to have a dual homed fabric, and that's going to be a significant change to other pieces of code like VTN, possibly, maybe even XOS, things like that. It's possible that you can use it in a non-dual homed way, which is what 1.10 will have, right? So
I guess from a deployment standpoint that we know about, is there any reason why we would want to do 1.11? So are there dependencies that we know of that we need a core version 4.0 that?
No, I don't think so. Not in Cord at least. I think Cord would be fine if it uses the fabric that is going out in Kingfisher, which is 1.10. There'll be some work that'll be required to change the other pieces of code to work with the new way we are configuring the fabric in 1.10, but that's doable. However, if you wait till 1.11 for the fabric that comes out in 1.11, that's going to have much more changes, and there'll be much lesser time to adjust to those changes, unless you use 1.11 exactly the way you're using 1.10. Does that make sense? That means you don't use the dual homing features.
But even the configuration is going to change probably, right?
The configuration from 1.10 to 1.11, yeah, it already is changing because the hosts have to, when you have dual home hosts, they show up in multiple locations, and so if you have to configure them, then it has to be an array and all that, right? So there'll be slight differences between there'll be slight differences in configuration between 1.10 and 1.11. And even if you use 1.11 exactly the same way as 1.10.
And the thing is, the configuration, some of it at least is coming from services inside of XOS, right? So changing the configuration actually means that you have to go and change the code.
Yes, that's right. So that's what I meant, that other parts of Cord have to adjust to the new way we configure the fabric and the way we use it. So I think it's safer if you went with the fabric in 1.10. That's just my opinion.
But the other question is, we talked a while back about splitting the fabric out of ONOS, right? And
that's true.
And I think you guys attempted to do that, but there were some issues.
The issue was that the app can be separated anytime. That's not a big deal. The problem is the app depends on, there's other pieces, right? The solution depends on the driver. And the driver can't be separated that easily because, Andrea, Charles, Thomas, they've all been having these discussions about how the driver has to be dynamically loaded, and then it has to be able to, you should have the ability to change the driver at runtime and things like that. Those were bigger changes that no one attempted.
Well, I thought Thomas was working on
really?
pieces of those.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Yes, Thomas actually had a fix for at least the timing, the HA timing issue that we had. That was fixed, and we have a mechanism to make sure that the driver is loaded when an application requires it. So we might want to take this offline, but we might want to consider trying this and trying to move the fabric out for 1.11. I don't know.
Okay.
Because that would it would reduce these kind of dependencies. So we don't get stuck with, we need this version of the fabric, but that means we have all the ONOS and we don't have the new effects. So,
Because my preference is to go with 1.10 from a risk standpoint, but with the understanding that there will be no special cherry picking unless everything is broken, right? because there has been a lot of burden on the ONO side in order to cherry pick a bunch of these fixes back. I understand there were HA issues, but it's been a huge burden on that side.
Yeah, I think we want to be, code wants to be as close to the, with the newest version of us as possible.
But I think the concern was
yeah,
the
I'm saying, we know that there's a fabric issue now, but in general, we call us to be using the most recent version of us that it can be, so we don't have this problem of having to, cherry pick back on the fixes.
So fabric issues aside, do you have any other concerns of wanting to be in 1.10 instead of 1.11?
I don't know that there are any dependencies unless MCord, but all the MCord apps are separate applications, right? Are you guys dependent on a specific version of ONOS?
I think in 2.0 we depend on the 1.8. We're old, so we don't talk about it anymore. But in September, I don't have any dependencies so far. I don't have a requirement for which version to use.
So the September version is based on Core 3.0. It's the follow-on version.
Yeah. We are all moving to 3.0.
Okay, but the next version is 4.0, which is going to be looking at what, 1.10 for ONOS is what we're proposing now?
Yeah. So can I just start for the pseudo-wire? So we haven't been able to test this, right? As soon as we can start testing, if we go with 1.10, will we be backporting whatever bugs we might discover or not? It's impossible to say what bugs it's loading, right? How small or what is it loading?
Yeah, but I still don't have broad comfort.
I know.
So yeah.
So is that coming back into 1.10 or is that 1.11?
They'll be going to back 1.10, but that'll be like an app change. It won't, I don't know.
It's all app.
You can change app or driver. Yeah. App or driver is always app or driver.
I really like the third. Normally I use two features. One is just to give the connectivity to compute node. Another one is the VLAN.
Yeah.
Only need the.
I know what that is. So I think just take a time out and say that let's go with 1.10. We make our best effort to move the fabric and the driver out so that we reduce this dependency on ONOS, between the fabric and ONOS. If we are able to do that, and we are all comfortable that 1.11 is reasonably can be done and integrate with the rest of code, then we make that call. For now, let's say we're going with 1. Is that okay with everyone?
Okay, so.
And if there is a need to backport, we will backport. We'll try to avoid it as much as we can. But
So
we'll see how it
plan
goes.
1.10 less fabric can be moved out of ONOS, then we can look at 1.11.
Yeah.
I think things we want to monitor
Between me, Charles,
would be the pseudo-wire. So things to monitor would be pseudo-wire.
Yeah.
For backport.
Okay, so those are essentially the basic features we had talked about, right? From a QA standpoint, framework enhancements, support framework for Volta, functional tests for Volta vRouter. So what I'm trying to get at here is, from a shared solution standpoint, we're looking at 6 sprints, right? Our first sprint will start today, go for 3 weeks. All the sprints are essentially 3 weeks, ending in September. As we look at the platform, you'll see this is fairly platform focused, but part of it is trying to understand the dependencies between the pieces. There's the incremental build environment, there's the comprehensive testing with a goal to make sure that we understand what the unit test coverage is. And so part of it is getting a framework or dashboard set up so that we can see that. And then a series of changes in terms of cleanup and refactor. So what we've done with all of that is taken kind of this prioritize list, because this is in priority order, and did a sprint mapping so that from a dependency standpoint, for example, the data model cleanup will have some impact on eCord and mCord, right? So, and ACord. So the thought is that I know Larry's been asking eCord and ACord minimally to get things working with 3.0 with an integrated release of 3.0.1 with eCord and ACord, right? What we're looking at is there may be a 3.0.2 release with the data model changes, and there would be a need at that point to do some additional refactoring from eCord and ACord.
Is that a question?
That was an FYI. So my understanding is at the TST, this was discussed. Scott? I thought this was brought up at the TST.
Yeah, we brought this up that people were going to migrate to a dangerous edition as it is now, and then we're going to do the cleanup stuff we want, and then we expect that to be fairly low impact, and we will migrate to the cleaned up stuff when it's done. At least that's my recollection.
Who is we?
Yeah, that's.
Team?
We would be a combination of the XOS team, you know, myself and Sapin, with maybe some assistance from the eCord and mCord people.
Okay, you guys.
Fine. We'll see what this brings in.
Well, I mean, if you want to wait, why don't you just wait? What's the alternative? Wait.
Well, that's, I don't know if there's a problem with it, but this is the issue with working on a moving target. It never stops moving. Exactly. So that was my, I thought we were at a fixed point in with releasing 3.0, and apparently we're not. So
yeah, I guess the discussion with the TST was that it's expected that the changes between 3.0.1 won't be very large, and in fact they'll just be getting rid of old APIs. That's my understanding.
Yeah, this is Larry. My understanding was that you would go ahead and migrate to 3.0, and anything that happens later is a deletion of code cleanup, not nothing more to be written.
if that is really what will happen, at least from my perspective, if the 2 cord in a box builds that I have running today pass, we're done. But
That's good. That's good.
I don't know.
So, yeah, if there happens to be any, I'm sorry, we're not going to do that. 3.01 will include that, and it won't be very long in the future. Let's see how far behind ACord is.
Sure.
And the other way of looking at this, not to put too much on Scott and Sapin, is, you know, they did the migration work that needed to happen for our cord because it was already caught up. And assuming that's not too much of a burden, maybe they do need a little bit of help migrating eCord and ACord to any improvements in the models and so on. Would be fine, at least for a little while here. Eventually that'll stop, but.
Yeah, we're just not expecting these changes to be all that huge. So we're not expecting a huge migration effort, you know, whether we do it ourselves or whether we have other people jump in to help us or whatever happens with that.
Okay, so in general, that would be the data model cleanup. The data model cleanup is expected to last 2 sprints. And then what you'll see is there's a variety of other changes. There's going to be an XOS config change. There's work on a uniform dev environment that'll span 3 sprints. a new service tenancy model. There are dependencies from MCord, but in not the September, but the follow-on release for changes in the service tenancy, and I think Incremental was going to leverage this too. There's going to be changes in logging, exception and event handling. So what you'll see is we've done kind of a layout in terms of when things will be done, and so as you're looking at kind of dependencies, these are some things to keep in mind. From a QA standpoint, there's going to be a unit test dashboard. I think the plan was to use SonarQube. And so in Sprint 2, we'll get SonarQube set up. And then Sugitra has a bunch of QA changes that is going to be phased in. So you'll see from here the testing implications. I think from a Fabric standpoint, Sarah, when were you planning to get the Fabric changes in for 1.10? That would imply, right, we're changing over to using 1.10
right. We probably start that from sprint, one of the later sprints, because right now, Charles and I are heavily in the middle of doing development for dual homing, which won't show up in dangerous shared delusion. But we have to do that to meet our Comcast deliverables, right? So once we're past that, I think around the sprint 3 timeframe is when we'll be working on getting the 1.10 Fabric integrated with the rest of it.
So sprint 3 is June.
In June, right? Late June, yeah.
So
I think we will need till that time to meet the end of June deliverables for Comcast.
Okay, so we're saying in sprint 3.
When we start 1.10, Fabric 1.10, in ONAS 1.10 integration with the rest of Core.
Okay, how long do you think this will go for?
Oh, I think that sprint will be enough.
Okay, and then Andy, what this means is we're going to need to move Core to ONAS 1.10. So let's aim for that in sprint 2.
Are there configuration changes between 1.8 and 1.10?
Yes, a lot. Right, that's the main thing. That's the main integration.
So we need that.
It's not just the updated version.
So we need the Fabric changes first in order to get all the configs updated before we actually. So you guys all have to do the migration? Because we have a chicken and egg problem, right? I can't move to 1.10 and still have the Fabric work.
Yeah, I guess when you move to 1.10, whatever is generated in the config for the Fabric needs to also be updated.
Yeah.
We can tell you how we can look at what you do right now for configuration. We can tell you what it should be next.
I'm not completely up to date on how this happens, but I think there's just basically a JSON file that gets plugged into the XOS service when it gets booted up. So
It's a handwritten JSON file?
I think so.
Okay.
But there's been a bunch of work from
David Bainbridge has been saying something.
Yeah,
right?
but I'm not sure that is complete. I don't think it is complete.
No.
So I believe the config that the Fabric service and XOS is pushing just comes from basically a static JSON file.
So maybe as an action item, we should check with David Bainbridge, because he got upset with me once. I said it's just I told him it's just a text file, just push it, right? And he said no, we look at this, we look at that, and then we create this, and then we push that, and so maybe we should ask what he meant, and is that real or is that incomplete?
Okay,
Because
so
if it's just a text file, heck, we can do that today. We can tell you how the configuration changed.
Yeah.
Right?
so what I'm doing is a dependency. So Fabric team is going to do the integration of the Fabric. There needs to be changes on the platform side to update the Fabric configuration. And then I think what we're going to need to do is actually look at the bandwidth on the platform team side, and we may just need to adjust this out to sprint 4 if we need to.
That's fine. That's
Okay.
fine.
Because what we're looking at, if we were to lay this across kind of the various sprints, these are the folks working on this stuff, right? We still have some open cloud stuff that Zach is doing with some dependency on Scott for CDN, and then the rest of it is the core platform. So the data model changes. We're looking at some logging changes that Shivani may be able to help with. We'll see. Right, we've got a couple of interns that will be helping out. And then Jonah, we still have kind of a question mark here.
I think I will be okay to work on that.
Okay. And then sprints 4 through 6, right? 6, we want to focus on bug fixes and documentation. So one of the things that will be a focus of sprint 4 is breaking the hard-coded service dependencies that we currently have with our core. And then integration of event bus. So some of these are kind of lower priorities. And so I think we'll have to do kind of an assessment of where we're at and see if we can get the fabric changes in, because David Bainbridge isn't committing to doing dev work on core at this point.
Yeah, I'm guessing that work is kind of stalled in an incomplete state, but we should check with him to make sure.
Okay. And then from a sprint kind of planning standpoint, is there anything I need to take into account from the eCore folks? Okay. I think what we'll need to work through is when are things coming in? I think there's going to be a 3.0.1, so we'll need to add dependencies for getting 3.0.1 built, right, with ACORD and the eCore changes. And then once the data model changes are in, when are you guys migrating and when do we need to do kind of another build? Sure, so we just need to make sure we can take this offline. Okay. Okay, and then here's kind of the layout of what we're tackling through sprint 6. And then here are some brigades that are getting formed up with some folks. Okay, so now we can go to kind of our traditionally how we've normally done sprint planning. So we're actually looking at sprint 1. I'll close out sprint 6 in a bit. So what I'm seeing in sprint 1, so we have a bunch of new epics that were recently created. So Scott, Stefan, do you guys want to go over what we're doing for the data model cleanup?
Yeah, I can go first. So one of the points of Xproto was to remove our dependency on Django. Actually, Xproto is a layer that defines information at an abstract level that prevents us from getting bound to any particular technology. But we still have a lot of Django-specific code in the various in the attics of various services and core as well, and that's the stuff that we have to clean up. There's generate API from Xproto. So right now we have 2 generative tool chains. We have the old one that's based off the Django models that's generating the API and stuff in the synchronizer. We have the new one which is based on Xproto, which generates the Django models. We want to short circuit the two and generate everything based on Xproto and then delete the old tool chains and all of their dependencies. So we end up eliminating a lot of code there. So first 2 sprints for me are going to involve trying to characterize the Django specific code that we have and making it Django independent. And I'm going to start with security policies. And this is going to involve the implementation of a new credential system. Right now, our credential system is specific to particular models. I guess it's slice and user. We're going to implement one that's independent and you can use to exercise access control checks on any models. And we're also going to extend Xproto with a policy extension that lets you specify in what conditions certain pieces of data can be accessed. So for instance, can this field be accessed by a synchronizer to write? Can this field be accessed by, this field can only be accessed by such and such user. And then to implement pure protobuf support for this. So any changes you're going to make to Xproto going forward, we'll have a small ticket in which we would need to reinforce pure protobuf support without the Xproto syntactical sugaring extension, so you can use native protobufs to do whatever you can do in Xproto. And in the sprints to follow, we'll knit these two themes together. So we'll take this new policy support in Xproto and we'll generate the access control checks that are now implemented, that are currently implemented manually. So that's going to be my preoccupation for the first sprint.
Okay. Are you finished, Sapin?
Yeah, I'm finished.
Okay, I'll go through mine real quick. The first one I have 1241, that's removing obsolete models and fields. I've also edited the title of that to include renaming objects that we want to be renamed. Basically, get rid of any junk that's in the data model itself that isn't right. You know, there may be some moving around the foreign keys. We'll see what all that involves as we start going through it. 1244 is to start cleaning up the attic. I imagine Sap and I are going to be working on cleaning up these attics together. I'm going to concentrate on removing code that looks like it's dead, as well as maybe killing off code that should be dead and moving code to other places. Next up is to generalize the model policy framework so it extends to services. So right now we have a model policy system, but it's only used for the core. And then service model policies ended up implemented in attic. So the idea is to make sure the model policy framework supports everything that services will need, so that during the following sprint, we can move any of those model policies out of the attics and into the model policy framework. And then finally, I have some unit testing stuff that I've been working on. That's the client-side ORM, which is kind of an extension of the data model. And that's just getting the frameworks in place so that we can do unit testing without having to bring up an entire backend to support the unit tests. So basically creating the necessary mock objects and stuff like that. That's it.
Matteo?
Yes, I will rewrite the config module during the sprint. For now, we have 3 tasks that are not very detailed. The first one is to design this new module, and once I get over that, I will split the other 2 in smaller tasks.
Okay.
And well, that's it.
Okay, thanks, Matteo. And Zach?
So during the sprint planning, we spent some time, the core XOS and core developers spent some time brainstorming about how to make it easier to develop, record, and I think we were in agreement that we would like to have this pipeline of being able to start off in a lightweight development environment where you're just developing your own piece in isolation and then gradually moving towards a more integrated system, and some other ideas that were thrown out there too to make development and deployment easier. So the goal of this sprint is basically to come up with a design document for what we are going to do, the work we're going to do to make development for core easier. And so these are basically just kind of documentation, tasks, exploration, meeting people, gathering requirements, fleshing out the design. And I guess Zach and I are planning on teaming up on this task.
Okay. Thanks, Andy. And then logging. Matteo, we wanted Shivani to start.
Yes, I think we can drag in for sure the design new logging component. And I'm pretty sure we can also drag in implementing logging component 1. That I assume is the first part of the implementation.
Okay.
I guess this one we will be specified better after the design.
Okay. And then you're setting up the meeting with Shivani, Scott, and Stefan?
Yes, we did talk it briefly this morning, and we had a plan to start basically to make an analysis of all the login statements we have, and starting from there to decide which is the solution that best fit our problem with the logging.
Okay. Okay, so no defects, deployments and builds.
So one of the tasks that I had on here was, this is something that Luca and I have been looking at, just trying to get the Calyx pod working. It breaks reliably at a specific step, and it's very mysterious about why it breaks there. So assuming I can fit this in, I'm going to take a look at it.
Okay. Thanks, Andy. And then Luca? Okay. Luca must still be drugged up from his...
He can't talk.
You can
What's the
type
percentage?
Luca if you're online. Okay. We should not have any refactor XOS. I think we need to clean out some of the old epics. And then fabric, Sarah?
There.
Sorry.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. For the fabric, again, these are not shared dilution deliverables, but this is for Comcast. Dual homing, again, most of these things are related to dual homing. Improving the scale of the fabric, which currently uses ECMP groups. When we consider dual homing, there'll be more leaves, and we will quickly outpace what the hardware limits us to the number of ECMP groups. So we have to change the routing of logic in the fabric in order to not use more ECMP groups. And similarly, Charles will be working on the server side of things, the access side of things, and Jono will be working on the dual Quagga support for part of dual homing as well. So it's all dual homing this sprint for us. Any questions?
We're using stuff which is in the DA sprint, because the previous sprint is still not closed.
Oh, it's still not closed. Yeah, but I picked the stuff that we will be working on this things, and the rest of the things like DHCP relay will be pushed back.
Yes, I hope folks noticed that there were a bunch of things still, right, in the previous sprint that needs to be closed out. And when it closes out, hopefully it'll fall into backlog. But if
that's what it does, right? Usually.
Yeah, I mean, because when I was trying to move things into the other sprint, it said sprint will be affected by this action. So.
Yeah, sometimes what happens is it jumps to the other sprint, it's not pleasant.
So usually what,
But
whoever used to do this earlier used to close out the previous sprint, then things would fall into the backlog,
Yeah.
and then open the new sprint where you could move things
Yes.
manually, right?
I normally do that, except we needed the new sprint in order to try to do the review and the planning in the same day.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So what I can do is I'll manually move everything to backlog. So my assumption is you consciously decided what you're going to do in sprint 1. I'll
Yeah.
manually move everything that is in the existing sprint that isn't done into the backlog.
Yeah, that would work.
So that should do it. Okay, anything else?
That's us. We have some.
Yeah, yes, sorry. That's not, I meant fabric. That's very easy. We haven't gone through all those things yet. And then no view adders, so 2A. I know, just try, just to go before you say.
Oh, you were looking at us. Anything else?
No, that's okay. Okay, for QA, most of the tasks that we have is around enhancing the existing Jenkins jobs that we have. Basically, we want to mostly put focus on enhancing the jobs that have the pod, and we would add more stages to the existing pipeline jobs to include more functionality tests and end-to-end tests. That's whatever we have from the code tester. So if you see, the first task is about the existing Chameleon API test to put in the Jenkins job, and the next one talks about the code tester pipeline job, which is for the CIAB, and the next one is again for the Jenkins job for the physical pod. So we have several tests, functional tests in code tester already available for VT and VST Fabric and vRouter. So we would use it on the physical pod and update the Jenkins script to run them. And as part of the sprint planning, we also have the Volta coverage to start. I haven't added any stories here because now there is a confusion where we have to add them. I need to talk to Donna because she has created another document to update QA roadmap onto Volta. So there's a confusion. So I just wanted to clear that before I add the task accordingly.
It also hasn't integrated with course pod.
Yes, yes. So I just wanted to clear that before we add any tasks here. But I have already put as part of the sprint planning because we have to, before it is integrated, what we plan to do the first 3 sprints in for this shared solution is we are preparing, investigating how we want to run some of the manual tests and get the hardware, and also plan for the automation framework development of Volta before it is integrated. And once it is integrated, we'll have the other stories accordingly. So based on the both the roadmap from Volta and integration group and the shared solution, until sprint 3, there is no integration. So after sprint 3, then I mean, we wanted to see like which is the right way to put. We just want to track it as part of a separate project, or we want to do it here?
So I think Volta has split into a different project now, right?
Yeah.
But that's just related to Volta and nothing else, or maybe the ONOS apps that work with Volta.
Okay.
But Volta has to be integrated into Cord as well, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that we will do in this in the coming weeks. The problem with that is that we don't have hardware to run against Volta. So we're trying to get the emulator. That's what Shad is working on right now, to try and get the emulator working. And if we can, then we can go ahead with trying to integrate Volta into Cord, residential Cord. And if we are successful in doing that, then yes, it can start coming into your, so you can prepare for it.
Okay.
But what you do here has to be Volta in Cord, right? Whereas the
exactly.
other project is just Volta on its own.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think what we're saying is the QA requirement is really on the Cord platform.
Cord platform, yes.
And we'll only cover Volta once it transitions over
Correct.
to Cord. So what sprints are you guys seeing that come in?
It's hard to say because it's so much greatly dependent on do we have any hardware to run against Volta. And right now the answer is no. So depending on Shad's success in sprint 1, then we can look sprint 2 onwards to start integrating it.
So,
Right. So, go ahead.
so is this the same emulator that the Radisys group is also has access that I want to try?
Well, so she is working with Shad on the emulator to try and get that working. I'm not sure what you mean they have access to, because it's in the Volta code base, right? The emulator is.
Yeah, so this is what even Radisys group is trying to using that mock server, try to manually run some of the tests.
Okay. Then it's probably the same thing, right?
Okay. Okay. So I think we're done.
Yes.
QA?
Yeah.
And then Econ.
So my side, I have a couple of models and synchronizer to refactor/redo in Metronet global and local services for orchestration, and we were also in the talks to integrate some of the core private LTE requirements into those models. So that's my side of things. That's about 8, 9 points. Then there is Francesco, which I can speak. He's doing some work on the current internet application and bringing it in as basically the ONUS metro orchestration to separating forwarding constructs to the proper ONUS's application running all over the core deployments. And splitting up the orchestration part from the provisioning part, yeah, exactly. And then from my side, I'll focus on the back, which is kind of weird state right now with all the changes that are happening. So I'll try to get that fixed. And I guess I'll have to bring in, it's not tracked right now, I guess I have to bring in anything related to what we were talking about before, and changes that happen. Now to 3.4 to 0.1. That is not scoped in the sprint. I hope not to do it.
So are we ready in terms of eCorp for 3.0.1 release, based upon current state of 3.0?
I don't have an answer for you right now.
Okay.
I think by the end of the week we will, because then I'll have some machines deploying it, some machines. Maybe by the end of the week we can have it. But I just looked at the 2 core builds, put in a box build that I was hoping to get them passed, and they were still same points. So I don't know. I cannot give you an answer right now.
Okay. Yeah, just update the CSC. We'll drive it from that perspective. And then, of course, I think that this is for because of September, this is another milestone, so we ported from 2.0 to 3.0. What I'm talking about is also based on 3.0 we did. And so we are move all the services config files and the profiles and the config files to code, to make our MCOD work on code 3.0. Yeah, this is a 2 big story. We have a lot of small tasks inside. Okay. And then when are you guys projecting to be running on 3.0? By the end of the sprint? Yeah. It's from because of the last sprint, we already got all documents to start it, but needed this sprint to finish it. Okay, I think that was all we.
So are you going to work with Donna to move these Volta stories over?
Donna, I believe, is moving them over to the other Jira. Zach, I thought there were some open cloud stories that needed to be in the sprint. Zach? Okay, we're trying to finish up open cloud and sprint 1, so there should be stories there. Let me ping him offline. I will close the other sprint, get this one started, and then shuffle things back into the backlog.
Do you have anything under RCOR? Actually, I didn't check. Nothing, right? Okay.
No, who is he working on?
Nobody right now. But once we get the emulator working with Volta, and I said that Volta needs to be integrated with Chord, I meant integrated with our Chord, right? So obviously, so that's something in the future.
Okay.
Sprints, not in this sprint.
Okay. I think that's it. Thanks, everyone. Okay, next. Andy, please post the recording. Thank you.
Yep, we'll do. Bye.
Bye.